Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the least ideal Beethoven piano concerto cycles by major soloists. Now, we've already done the ideal ones, where we presented 5 different concertos by 5 different major artists with no weak links. The idea here, as I've said before, is not necessarily to do the best, because there's no such thing as the best, but rather to give you a diverse cycle by really important people at their best, whatever it is. Well, now we're doing them at their worst. It's so much fun to do this, because it's not just that we like crapping on bad performances. I mean, let's face it, that's very enjoyable, but it says something about the way people make records and how soloists feel about their work. And we come up with some interesting things, I think, by doing this exercise. And you're welcome to join in. But remember, you have to give us all 5 piano concertos by 5 different soloists, because it's much too easy if it's all the same people. Particularly when you're talking about Beethoven piano concertos. I mean, you've got Melvin Tan and Roger Norrington, if you want horrible. Or we've got, what's his name? What was his name? Snickerdoodle here. I mean, I keep this handy, just as, to have an awful example I can pull out whenever necessary. Oh, here we are. Yes, Arthur Schunderverd and Cristofori for screaming horribleness. But no, this isn't about that. This is just about people not being their best. It's about a little bit more nuance and discernment. So let's get hopping. Piano Concerto number 1, Alexis Weissenberg and Herbert von Karajan with the Berlin Philharmonic on Warner. Well, this is a Beethoven cycle that no one much cared for, ever. It's not really Weissenberg's fault. He's very consistent throughout the cycle. He's Weissenberg-ish. I mean, he was a steely, hard-edged, an exciting pianist. He really is. Karajan, oh my gosh, he is so not a great concerto accompanist for the most part. I mean, there were some, he could handle, Christian Ferris. I mean, if he liked the soloist, he could be nice to them. And they had to comport with his concept of sonority, but it was still all about him. And these works are not all about the conductor. He just has that sort of glutinous porridge string sound, which is not really good for the early Beethoven concertos particularly. They can make some beautiful sounds in the 4th concerto. I mean, okay, yeah, here or there, but even there, it doesn't work. It's too sticky. And these early works, they're all bubbly and light and effervescent, and you need to have a sense of humor. And oh gosh, these guys are so far from that. It's unbelievable. So that's number 1. Number 2, Martha Argerich and Claudio Abbado. Now, Argerich recorded the 2 early Beethoven piano concertos, especially the first, about 50 times. This is the second. She recorded it with Abbado, who was her regular concerto partner. They made amazing recordings together, but there was just no reason to do this again. First of all, it was late Abbado, and late Abbado, especially in this kind of classical repertoire, was always uncomfortable. He could do it. I mean, with Friedrich Gulde, he did some nice Mozart. He could do it if it interested him. The Mozart, because he liked the operas, but Beethoven, it was never really his thing. So the accompaniments are far less interesting and effective than they were for Argerich when she had Giuseppe Sinopoli, for example. That's the best example, probably, for the same label. And also, Abbado was doing, at this point, sort of the period instrument-y, chambery thing, which sounds uncomfortable. And Argerich, who plays really well, she always plays really well, but not as well. She's not as fresh. She's not as uninhibited as she was for Sinopoli. It's just not a great effort. And, that's what happens when artists do the same things over and over and over and over and over. They're competing with themselves. And that's also true of our next selection, Rudolf Serkin, in the 3rd concerto with the Boston Symphony and Seiji Ozawa on Telarc. This cycle got lots of attention because of the wonderfully beautiful recorded sound. I mean, it was early Telarc, minimalist Telarc, really good Telarc. It sounds gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. But Serkin, I mean, he made one of the dazzling recordings of this concerto with Leonard Bernstein. He did a fabulous cycle with Kubelik and, on Orfeo Live. what is going on here? He's very old. He's slower. He's less nimble. And Ozawa is phoning it in with the Boston Symphony. I mean, they're neat and clean and completely uninteresting, and it's all captured in resplendent sound. And who cares? I mean, really, it's a pity. It's just a pity. It's a question of, artists being smart enough to know what their best work is and when it should be released, and why do they keep doing it over and over again. So we have it with Argerich, we have it with Serkin, and we didn't have it with Weissenberg, but we definitely have it with Clifford Curzon. Clifford Curzon was a guy who was so perfectionist that he didn't release some of his greatest Mozart recordings. His 27th, was it with Benjamin Britten? It was wonderful. He refused to permit it to be released. Maybe he wanted to do it again. Maybe he wanted a patch-up session that never happened. Who knows? So after he died, some of these recordings came out. And they were really, really great. And no one could figure out why he denied them permission, whichever ones they were. It may have been the D minor concerto. I don't know. There were a couple Mozarts. But the bottom line is, he allowed this Beethoven horror show with Knappertsbusch and the Vienna Phil to come out. Maybe it was because he had Knappertsbusch or the Vienna Phil. Maybe he liked them. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what's going on in their brains as the wheels are turning? But the Emperor. Well, that one wasn't as bad. It was Concertos 4 and 5 on CD. They were separate LPs. But the Emperor, well, okay, it was tolerable. It was sloppy, but it was tolerable. But this fourth, ugh, oh my, it all goes wrong. Knappertsbusch was not a Mozart conductor. This is Beethoven's most Mozartian concerto. It really is. The string playing is slovenly. The tempos are sluggish. The second movement, where you've got the pianist and the versus the string section, the strings have to have bite and rhythm, and they're not together, and I can't even begin to tell you just how unpleasant the whole thing is. And Curzon, he could be a little bit effete, let's put it that way. I think that whether he actually is or isn't in this case is sort of an open question, because it's the contrast between Knappertsbusch's blowsy, droopy accompaniments, and then Curzon being neat and precise, and it's like a prim spinster who late in life gets married to a lumberjack. They just don't go together. They really don't. And last but not least, the Emperor. Oh, wow, yes. Pierre-Laurent Aimard and Nicholas Harnoncourt. Oh, my God, is this vile, this cycle. This was the cycle that was supposed to be with Martha Argerich. There were rumors that Argerich and Harnoncourt were going to do all the Beethoven concertos, and everybody was really excited for 15 minutes. Then this thing showed up. And Aimard, who's a wonderful pianist in contemporary music, but who has none of the prerequisites to really handle the grandeur, the transcendental repose of the slow movements of Beethoven, and Harnoncourt, who is at his Harnoncourtiest. He's with like the Chamber Orchestra of Europe, and he just wants to de-grandiosify Beethoven as much as possible. And okay, there are places where you could do that, but the Emperor Concerto? No. If it isn't grand, it isn't the Emperor Concerto, and this ain't the Emperor Concertos. No way this is the Emperor Concerto. It's just really kind of like blah. So there you have it, my friends, a blah cycle of Beethoven piano concertos. I'm dying to see what you come up with, or you could simply comment on these. Have a good time, and keep on listening, friends. Take care.